Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk Tuesdays, where every Tuesday we talk about some sort of educational issue or topic that we're dealing with every day as teachers. And this week we're digging into a pretty controversial topic, standardized testing. Thoughts and comments on standardized testing. Is it good? Is it bad? Who is it for? How I'm going to set up this video is I'm going to show a video response that I got. I'm going to read some comments from viewers, and then I'm going to give my interpretation at the end. So let's get right to it. This video response comes from Kaylee Nicole. She is a teacher YouTuber, and she sent me a video giving her thoughts on standardized tests. Here it is.
Hey Mr. Thain, it's Kaylee. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a first grade teacher on the east coast of Florida. So Mr. Thain, you posted a video about asking for our opinions on standardized testing. Well, here's mine. I think that standardized testing is okay to do because we do need that data, but I also feel like we put way too much pressure on the kids and way too much pressure on ourselves. Now, in Florida, we have the Florida Standards Assessment, and that goes for grades 3 through 10 for ELA and 3 through 8 for math. That test is like the end of the year test where everyone gets so nervous and the teachers get nervous and the kids just take it and see if they pass or fail, which I think is kind of ridiculous that we are basing their pass or fail rate on a test. I believe that everything else should be accounted as well. Now, we also have EOCs in Florida, end of course exams, and those are for high school courses or middle school courses. And those are computer-based tests, and the kids just take a test. Like if it was Biology 1, they would take a test on Biology 1. If it was Algebra 1, they would take a test for Algebra 1 and things like that, and just sees where they're at on that level. Now, testing is good. Yes, we are able to get that data. We're able to compare with other schools and see what we can do better, or things like that, which is great. It's great to look at that data and have that to reflect on for the next year to see how your teaching practices could get better. But it's also super stressful for the kids, and it's super stressful for the teachers. Some teachers get merit pay where their pay is based on how the students do on the test, which I think is ridiculous. We should not be basing our pay on students' test scores. We already don't get paid enough, like you discussed last week, so why should we base our pay on student test scores? Now in first grade, I know you teach kindergarten, and in first grade we don't have standardized testing, but we do have district tests. We have a math district test that happens 4 times a year. You heard me, 4 times. We also have a reading test that happens 4 times a year, and they normally fall around the same time. So you can imagine those couple of weeks of testing are crazy in a classroom full of first graders or kindergartners, or even our second graders do it as well in this district. That test is crazy. It has one-on-one parts, it has whole group parts, it has parts that you might have to pull back in small group because there's no way that your kids are going to be able to all focus at one time. It is super duper hard for the kids. It's good for them because it helps us see what standards they need help on and all that, but I think it's ridiculous we have it 4 times a year. I think it should be once at the beginning as a baseline, and then once at the end. I think that would be perfectly fine, and I also think that we should get help on testing those kids because it's solely up to us as teachers to test those kids. Not only test them, but test them, have their information put into a computer program where we have to type in every single answer the students answer and put it in a computer system, and it takes forever. You go through each kid and there's 30 questions at least for each kid, and you have to put in what they put. It's so time consuming and it takes forever, and it's actually really super stressful if you let it get to you. So all in all, standardized testing is good. It's also kind of bad. I'm kind of mixed on it. I think it's good to have that data, but then I also think that we need to calm down about it. Teachers get stressed out. Students get stressed out. Students get anxiety over these tests, and they don't even want to come because of the test. I think it's ridiculous that we put that much pressure on the kids and that we just need to calm down about it. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Kaylee, for sharing. And if you want to check out her channel, I'll leave a link in the description below for you to go to her channel. Now for some comments on the topic. This first comment comes from Detroit Teacher Life, 20 years in the game, and she says, testing to determine baseline growth is fine. Using them to determine teacher merit pay or making kids feel like they aren't intelligent because they haven't reached some ridiculous standard is 100% wrong. No one's livelihood, student or teacher, should be attached to these tests. P.S. When you apply for a mortgage as an adult, does anybody ask what your score was on your 4th grade test? No. These tests don't matter in the long term of our lives, so why do we put so much weight on them? They are a menace and should be eradicated. Very strong feelings from Detroit teacher, 20 years in the game, and she's been teaching for 20 years. So she's got a lot of experience, and she's seen the whole myriad of different tests coming and going. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I agree, though, with using it as a baseline. Like, testing is necessary. Assessment. We have to assess our students, but where do we draw the line? This next comment comes from Senor S's Spanish bot. And he says, in a nutshell, I believe that it can never fully show all students' understanding and mastery of a subject, nor does it account for variables that inevitably harm students' performance, such as test anxiety. I understand that it exists because it's what's easy, but I would much prefer a project-based learning model to assessments. I also fear that in many locations, too much emphasis is being put on students' test scores and evaluating teachers' effectiveness. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I agree. There's such a huge emphasis on this is how we know a teacher did well, how their kids performed on this very specific test. This next comment comes from Christy, hopefully I'm saying her last name right, Albrecht. And she says, I understand that it's important to measure student success between schools, districts, and states. However, there has to be a better way to go about it than standardized testing. So yeah, one of the big things that we use standardized testing for is to compare school to school, and from like city school to city school, from state to state. We use it as a comparative measurement. But why? But for what? That's what I've never really understood is, I get it. I get the reason behind the testing to see, is my school doing better or worse than the school down the road? Or are Ohio schools doing as well as Indiana schools? But why does it, I don't know why it matters. Next comment comes from Tay Teaches. Standardized tests are fine for data purposes, but there's way too much stress on the students, parents, and teachers. I believe students are over-tested and over-stressed. My kids take at least 2 or 3 different required tests a month, and we add standardized testing on top of that. It's crazy. Yeah, we have tests anyways. As teachers, we give out tests. We have to assess our students. Formative, summative, completely informal. We have to assess our own students. So I'm giving a test or an assessment all the time, sometimes daily. It could just be me taking notes on how a student answered a question. That's a form of assessment. But when we do all that in the classroom and then also ask them to do these standardized tests and all these other tests and the district-wide tests, it's just so much. This next comment comes from Lily Flores, who says, I'm not a teacher yet, but I guess I'll share my opinion since I have only been out of high school for only 2 years now. I personally hate standardized tests, and it was obvious my teachers disliked them as well. They're so restricting. Teachers were forced to teach certain things in order for students to pass tests, but this leaves no room for growth. Students hammer lessons down our throats when it's not even really what they want to teach. As a student, it's obvious when a teacher isn't really passionate about what they are teaching, in my opinion. That makes the students less excited to learn, or at least that's how it was for me. I completely agree, Lily. In high school, I remember my senior year, my math teacher saying, we have to get through this entire book in these 10 weeks. And he didn't slow down, and he felt so much pressure to get through it, and I didn't really feel like I learned that much. Next comment comes from Jennifer Smith. She says, I honestly don't mind the tests themselves. I do not like the emphasis put on them. I hear that in Texas we spend millions, maybe 1.3 billion, but I'm not certain, on testing. Then there's how it affects the classroom. Teachers feel the pressure to teach the test, which is boring for students and the teacher. You can see their eyes glaze over. I don't mind being held accountable in some way. Me neither. We all teach our butts off every day. If someone wants to see how many kiddos have improved, go for it. I've seen schools closed because of poor test results. I've seen the same thing, and I totally agree. When teachers have to teach a very specific thing a very specific way, it can get very boring for the students and the teachers themselves, and there's a lot of pressure and emphasis put on the standardized tests. This next comment comes from Melissa S. She had a very long, heartfelt comment, and I'm going to just summarize it for you. I'm going to put the whole comment up so you can read it for yourself if you want to pause it and read the whole thing. But at the end she says, way too much time is spent preparing and taking these tests. There could be so much learning going on instead. Have you ever looked at Finland's education system? They have it going on. Kids can be kids and explore and learn. It's amazing. I think I'll move to Finland. Yes, I have. Thank you for your comment. I'm going to leave the whole comment so you can read it. If you haven't yet looked at it, take a look at the Finland school systems. Do a Google search on it, find it on YouTube. There's some really good documentaries and some good research and some good studies that have been done on Finland's education system and how it operates. Check that out if you're interested. Thank you all for commenting and participating. If I did not get to your comment this time, please feel free to comment on the next video and I'll try to get to yours the next time. So real quick, my take on everything. I sort of agree with everybody's comments in that teacher accountability is needed. We need to be accountable as teachers and our students need to be accountable as well. I am totally for assessment. I assess my students, like I said, all the time, every day, different ways, because as a teacher, I need to know if I'm doing my job. But see, I design these tests based on what I teach. So I know if I'm teaching a lesson on adding within 20 and I teach the lesson, I have an exit ticket that matches what I teach, and I know by the end of that lesson, did my kids get it or not? It's not just some rando math test the district decided to give us where it has all these random things that we haven't even taught yet on it. So, I guess the reality of it is I don't understand the need for these big-time companies coming in and making these standardized tests that we're forced to take. I'm all for district tests if it helps the students out, if the emphasis is put on helping the students. I'm all for that. I'm all for school-wide tests and teacher-developed tests, and heck, even one standardized test a year if you must. But there's so many tests that they have to take. True story, I'm going to leave you with this. True story. I took the ACT to get into college. I scored a 17 on my ACT, and that's a terrible score if you didn't know, if you're an SAT person. According to that score, I should not have been successful in college. The ACT is supposedly designed to determine if somebody is going to be successful in college or not. I scored a 17. I shouldn't have been able to graduate, but I did. I made the dean's list 3 out of the 4 years. And then I was able to go on and get my master's degree. So this is not just me gloating, it's me telling you that it didn't matter that I sucked at taking standardized tests. It didn't matter that I didn't know a bunch of random facts. It did not matter that I did not remember some weird algebra equation that I needed for the test, or that, it didn't matter. The university I went to gave me a chance based on everything else. They looked at me as a whole person and not just a test score, and I made it, and I succeeded. So, there you go. That's my little nugget. If you have anything else to add to the conversation about standardized tests, please, please, please comment down below. I would love to hear from you. It's a huge topic we need to talk about. Thank you again for watching, and make sure to tune in Saturday evening, and I'll reveal the next topic for Real Talk Tuesdays. Mr. Thain out.